then we start to really think that we should just be manipulating these outcomes
Right.
over here. And because training is so nuanced, we start to think like that's got to be what we measure. I have an athlete I've coached from 2015 to still currently coaching. He's the number 11 discus thrower in the history of the entire world. He's a 3-time Olympian, and we never measured any of that shit. We just lifted and threw. What's up, everybody? We're here with Will Ratelle, Division I strength coach. I would assume possibly you are referred to as a researcher per se, maybe a self-researcher, but then also a former NFL football player, and myself, I'm a 2-time Olympic strength coach, and we're going to dive right into the effective reps model. And so, Will, I've listened to your recent video, probably enough that I could actually get close to reciting it. And
That's probably better than me.
well, the problem is someone like myself who is severely, I feel like everybody's ADHD, but has like substantial, I can dial in on things really well and actually block everything else out. And then 30 minutes later, I realize like that's all I've been doing. So I'm very good at auditory learning. And the first thing that I wanted to go over in the effective reps model with hypertrophy is it's almost as an assumption that there's other models. And like,
Yeah.
The first thought I had was like, what are the other models? Cause I think there's like looking at mechanisms. So you raise up in the video, you raise up metabolic stress, muscular damage, and then mechanical tension, which mechanisms is one thing that I think a lot of people will talk about in regards to this. But then in regards to models, I was like, dude, I don't even know off the top of my head. So maybe see if you can add to that, or if you have any thoughts on that before we really start to pick apart the effective reps model.
I don't think I know of any other models either, except for I would just say like the Brad Schoenfeld. I mean, because he had that one paper, really long paper of like, I think it was titled like the 3 mechanisms to hypertrophy, and it was mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. So I guess that's like the other model. It's not even a model, but that's what I would refer to. And like the Chris Beardsley stuff, the effective reps model just kind of prioritizes mechanical tension to a much higher degree than the metabolic stress and the muscle damage. So then I think it really just provides a really easy framework for people if they want to train for hypertrophy. Like, hey, what's the effective reps model say? What does the effective reps model say? And it says that in order for a rep to be effective in inducing hypertrophy, you got to have slow concentric contraction speed or slow shortening fibers plus high motor unit recruitment. Really, it boils down to, am I lifting heavy enough, and I'm lifting those heavy weights with enough effort? That's kind of what it comes down to. I just think it provides a really easy framework for people to guide them in their training.
Okay, so with that, I think maybe where I wanted to go was before we come back is then actually go through the mechanisms of like tension, mechanical tension versus muscular damage versus metabolic stress. And maybe could you walk us through those 3 mechanisms? And I did want to add on that, like even, I'll read a lot from Lane Norton and Alan Aragon as well. And it's like, even with Lane Norton, I've never seen a very like defined model. So I do think that it's just us throwing around these definitions of mechanisms without a model. So that's like the big thing that I think will take us into like, what would metabolic stress, what would muscular damage look like? What is mechanical tension in a way?
Yeah, I think metabolic stress would just be the accumulation of hydrogen ions, the presence of lactate, those kinds of things. Muscle damage would be damaging the muscle fibers in order for satellite cells to be produced to come in and repair them. Put it simply. Unfortunately, I'm not that deep into the X-Phys where I can get super intricate with the details, but that's a pretty simple way of kind of describing those two mechanisms.
I think Yeah, one thing I'll point out is you mentioned BFR, blood flow restriction, in your video, and I think like a lot of people would make the statement of, like you're taking blood flow restriction and you're doing you could in theory have more metabolic stress, which will then lead to more gains in that regard. I always like to think about muscular damage in the sense of, I have Dorian Yates's book right next to me, but I always envision like him doing like 2 or 3 sets building up and then literally just slaughtering himself for, this huge set. And I think this is where I would agree with what you're stating and what Beardsley even talks about, where it's like there's a little bit more of a sarcoplasmic hypertrophy exists. We have an idea it exists. We don't know we don't know to what extent it exists, and we do know that satellite cells can proliferate, but we don't know to what extent that actually happens in like constructing and rehabilitating the injured site. So. Okay, the mechanisms are bro science defined,
Yeah.
And you bring up, explain what you mean when you say they're all occurring concurrently. So for us to really differentiate, I guess this is where I wanted clarification, because you sort of talk about it happening concurrently, but then you also want to really pinpoint more on mechanical tension. Is that just because that's the most clear in research, or is it because it's probably all that matters?
I mean, that's kind of just like the point that Chris Beardsley's making in his book, is that in order for his argument is, in order for metabolic stress to enhance the hypertrophic stimulus of strength training, mechanical tension must occur at the same time. But you can't get metabolic stress to induce hypertrophy without, you can't get metabolic stress to induce hypertrophy without mechanical tension, but you can have mechanical tension induce hypertrophy absent of metabolic stress. Does that make sense? Did I put it in a way that makes sense there?
The way I would interpret that from a practical perspective is that you are saying, okay, so if you have let's use Dorian Yates versus a weightlifter. You're having the Dorian Yates method of just slaughtering that last set, go until until you're dead. You have metabolic stress and likely muscular damage, and that happens. But it's also happening with the presence of a large amount of mechanical tension. Then on this side, you might have a weightlifter who's doing 10 doubles let's say back squat or something, and there's not a large amount of stress. There might be some muscular damage from the range of motion and from the speed, but it's predominantly just from mechanical tension. I'm assuming that's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You put everything better than I can, man. You can articulate everything better than me.
No. I think it helped because I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been, we do these member on our YouTube channel. We do like a member presentation, and I'm in, I think I told you I'm presenting every week for 2 hours to our trainers on site. And it's like, we're really trying to think through all of these sort of levers. And it's funny because in training, when you're looking at training, and if you look at things like there's mentality, there's like a lever of a psychological lever of like, who is the athlete that you're dealing with. There's volume as a lever. There's your periodization lever. There's exercises, what technique lever that you're trying to pull. And I think like I'm fortunate because I've been able to sort of think through this. And when you're talking about the effective reps model, I'm like, every single lever that you pull in training should have a model that you're basing it off of. That's pre-built. That you can then tinker with. Like, well, this model's good, but this is the neo effective reps model, And I think that's. I just wanted to explain that. Maybe I'm rambling too much, but what's up, guys? Our podcast and our channel are sponsored by our own strength training app, Peak Strength. The entire focus of Peak Strength is to provide you guys with the absolute best sports performance app that you could ever imagine. We build out the programs on the back end. We take in all of these different decisions that we learned here on site at Garage Strength so that we can then apply it to you so you can improve your training. So if you guys want to improve your overall sports performance, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength. You'll get a free week of training, and then you can start getting on those gains, get those reps done so that you can become a champion. Now, let's get back to the video. Peace. Okay, so I wanted to get into then, there was one thing you said, time under tension matters, but it matters mostly in proximity to failure and recruitment. So let's just get into that a little bit more.
Yeah. Essentially what I'm trying to point out is that you can like slow the eccentric contraction speed. You can intentionally slow the concentric contraction speed to get more time under tension. But if it's not, but like when you're doing that, you're not recruiting as many high threshold motor units, so the motor unit recruitment is not as high. So therefore, according to the effective reps model, it's not as effective as if you were just to try to lift it fast, you know?
Okay, so with that question or with that statement, I had the thought of, okay, let's say you can back squat 300 kilos, which you're probably close to based off of your freaking senile, absolutely insane videos on Instagram. So let's say you back squat 300. I wanted to see your take on this, because when you said it, I was like, I don't know if I 100% agree. Only in the sense that, what if we put 330 on your back and you do a slow eccentric? Is that really going to decrease your high threshold motor unit recruitment if you're doing, like, let's say a triple, old school negative,
like a super max eccentric?
Yeah, that's where
you're attempting to resist. You're attempting to resist the load as long as you can. You fail, somehow get the bar back up. Yep. Yeah. You're assisted back up. Do it again. That's definitely. I mean, I don't have any literature to confirm what I'm going to say, but that's not going to reduce the level of motor unit recruitment compared to something lighter. No.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
That's where I was.
I'm speaking more in terms of like you put 75% on the bar and you're going to do a 5 count on the way down compared to just going down normal and then standing up as fast as you can. That's where I was kind of referring to.
So this is the interesting part. Okay, because that was a one thing with Poliquin's model of hypertrophy and time under tension and tempo. I've always felt, okay, let's take this example now. Let's say the 75%, and let's just say you're going to do 7 sets of 7, and you're doing a 3 to 4 second eccentric on the bench press at 75%. Now, I'm trying to really think through my words so that we can sort of break this down, because I think through this and I go, I've always personally felt that if we do 7 sets of 7, I'm just like, boom, 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 rack it, take a minute and a half, do that again. I can see a better carryover to strength from that range while still increasing size. And that's just from like my experience and also what I've seen in the gym. Now, the argument I could make here is if we do a slow eccentric for 3 to 4 seconds, 3 to 4 seconds slow eccentric with this tempo, we might do 7 sets of 7 at 75%, and I would argue the pump and in turn I would argue the feeling of what I would probably try to associate with metabolic stress and muscular damage, to me seems more prevalent. So how do we know if it's the tension? I guess that's where my unclear area is. Right or wrong, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't think Beardsley knows. I don't think anybody knows. I think what Beardsley's argument would be, when you're doing that 4 second count on the way down, you're getting closer to failure. You're getting more closer to failure towards that end of the set than you were without that eccentric. Therefore, near the end of the set, you are increasing the mechanical tension per fiber, per muscle fiber, and as you're getting closer to failure, you're attempting to recruit more and more motor units to not fail. I think that would probably be his not justification, his
His
explanation. Yeah.
Can you restate that? Can you restate that?
Oh,
Just
shit.
so you're saying, because I thought so you're saying there would be more fatigue on the non-slow eccentric?
No, with the slow eccentric.
But then if we're having more tension on the singular fibers from that, wouldn't that?
Yeah, I think that's probably that. See, I don't know, but I think that's
Because
probably
then,
what Beardsley would say.
okay, because then I see that.
Not necessarily more tension, but more tension placed on each individual fiber.
Okay, but then if I guess where I'm trying to go with it is like, if that's the case, and we're at 75% with that. Well, let's say there's 75% slow eccentric, and that same success rate would be 81% no slow eccentric. Is it then?
Which one?
Then
which one would be more conducive to hypertrophy? Yeah,
I think.
I don't know.
I think that I think part of this too is like I was so then when I'm listening to it, I had a couple thoughts too. Was like, okay, within 5 reps of failure, you actually brought up the stuff around bar speed, which I think is great, especially if we're looking at like, dude, you know what's funny? I think that if you get kids, so we do like especially in like a higher volume. I guess maybe I shouldn't say this because a higher repetition phase of Olympic lifts. Okay, so let's say we're doing like 5 triples and we're going all 5 triples at the same load. Like we're doing like right now, my one dude Ryan just did 5 triples at 121. But what we do is we go snatch, put it down, snatch, and it's timed. They got to get in under 12 seconds. And it's like boom, boom, boom. Rest a minute and a half. Do it again. Boom, boom, boom. And what's interesting there is I actually think there's even a bar speed to hypertrophy relationship, even in a movement that we would never associate with hypertrophy, that being a snatch, a clean with those rapid reps. And so when you had mentioned here, like, okay, let's look at bar speed, and can bar speed help us predict relative to that 5 repetition from failure? Can that help us predict? And just before you go into this, I want also to say, when you brought this up, I'm going, okay, so what do we have to have? We have to have RPE or RIR understood.
Yeah.
So then we're going into bars. So speed of bar has to be understood. And then we have to value that the athlete isn't a total baby when they're under stress. So that was like one thing I did want to bring up too.
Yeah. I mean, that's just something I would. So I'm not a strength coach anymore. I don't know if you didn't know that. I work in academics.
Well, no, but you're still training people online.
Yeah, true. But I work. I'm a kin instructor, kinesiology instructor at UND now. So yeah, I have.
That's why I was saying researcher.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So I can't conduct research because I'm not a professor. So I have to get my PhD in order to do that. But I have access to equipment like force plates. I have access to like ex-phys equipment and biomechanics equipment. And it's just like, that's something that I actually, since I might be able to actually kind of get something like this started within the academic community at UND, that's something that I actually want to look into because I think most people would agree. Maybe they wouldn't, but I mean, I would say if you're doing a set of 5 at 60% and you're doing multiple sets at 60%, multiple sets of 5 at 60%, that's not going to induce hypertrophy the same way doing sets of 5 at 80% is going to be. And obviously the speed of the bar between 60% and 80% is, let's just say 60%, you're moving it at 0.9 meters per second on average, and 80% is 0.5 meters per second on average. So like we know the speed of the bar, I'm going all over the place now. The bar speed is going to have a relationship with the type of hypertrophic stimulus or the effectiveness of the hypertrophic stimulus onto the muscle. I think it would be really cool to find out what threshold of speed do we actually need to stay under in order for effective reps to occur. I don't know. Did that make any sense?
Yeah. I guess and I think maybe that's I
You
think
also have
that's
to consider the fact that like you can't do this with untrained people because anything's going to work with untrained people too.
so
So like finding the correct population and demographics is super important for something like this too.
so that's where I was going to go was I had like this thought process that I think the point I disagree with is the point of dude, real quick aside, Chris Beardsley blocked me on Instagram like I'm saying like 7 years ago. So
Really?
he posted something.
You
I
commented
love
back, huh?
yeah, and like I just like went into it and I had a dude also I used to just rage on social media for no reason, like zero purpose, just being a total douche. And I always had this issue with like super skinny researchers. Like, guys, like,
Yeah.
dude, have you gotten under the bar? And what's sad is like on my other two pages, I can read his stuff, and I really like his stuff a lot. But on my personal account, I can't read his stuff because I'm blocked, and I want to message him and be like, please. I want to have him on the podcast and apologize to him and be like, please, can you let me see your stuff again? And I won't. I promise I won't be a total idiot. And anyway, I think where I disagree with him is I see, and this ties into this story, is that I see hypertrophy as like tension focused hypertrophy, which in the case that we were just referring to, I believe would likely be like the heavier, the 80% would be attention focused. And I think when I see something like, let's say sub 75 or 75 or below, I think there is more evidence of metabolic and muscular damage than we like. I think that's there in the sense of I'm doing this 3-7 method. I don't know if you know what it is. It's basically it's like a cluster set, and you go a set of 3, rest 15 seconds. A set of 4, rest 15 seconds. A set of 5, rest 15 seconds.
Jeez.
And I was thinking about, and you do it at 70%. Werner Gunther's coach did this, and I was thinking about putting a Tendo unit on to just get those, and I could send you the numbers. But like it's all at 70%. And as a trained athlete, I'm old and washed up now, but it's like I know the feeling I'm having at like set 6 is not, it doesn't feel tension based. It feels like I'm getting stabbed with lactate and I just can't move. Now I know that the tension will then be more dialed in on single fibers. So I think maybe the next step from the next model could be, is this a tension based, like where's the line drawn essentially is maybe what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, you brought up the aspect of trained people, because that was another thing I wanted to bring up. Is like if I've got an athlete who comes in and let's say they're 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, how am I going to value their ability or their capability to dial in what is an effective rep?
Yeah.
And in your case, how would you do that? And what are you using, to really base training off of in that case?
Yeah. I mean, when I work with people that young, I don't even think about, I don't think about, hypertrophy training as this like kind of separate thing. I don't think about the effective reps. It's just, I just want them to get reps. Probably the same kind of thing you do. They need to develop the motor skills. They need to develop habits. They need to develop technique. And along with that's going to come physiological adaptations anyways along down the road. So I don't even think about that shit with people that young.
Okay. So that's helpful in that regard, because I do think that's accurate. Now what I wanted to bring up is is there a model that you're monitoring? So you're using the effective reps model to monitor volume. How are you quantifying this in a session? Like, what does the number look like? Is it ERM? Are you writing like ERM 35 RIR on average here, and then bar speed here.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I want. I want us to be able to find, because I absolutely hate. And you have your own definition of volume, which I think you've thought about it a lot more than most people. But like this is why I hate the term volume, because some people define it as sets times reps. Some people say it's sets times reps times weight. Some people say it's like number of hard sets. Like there's all these different definitions that we don't have a standard go-to definition that we can all agree on, and then we're all like talking in different levels. But for me, dude, I don't know. I really don't know what the like. I could not recommend a number of effective reps for someone on a weekly basis. Like, hey, you need to get 20 effective reps for your quads in order to see growth. I couldn't do that. I wish I could, because that's also, it's going to be, there's going to be a relationship to the load on the bar speed too. So like, that's where finding the line of like, okay, you have to move it at this speed. You have to move the bar at this speed or under for the rep to be considered effective. But it also can't be too slow, because if it's too slow, you're going to induce too much fatigue in one rep that you can't repeat it. It can't be sustained to get the enough volume, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where I think I said in the video is like the skill in programming comes down to getting close enough to failure, but not too close in which you can't repeat. I said something like that.
Yeah, that was exactly that was the last portion. That was like from 2:15 to 2:22. I think the video is like 2 minutes and 32 seconds or something.
It's really like it practically speaking, it's all going to come down to trial and error for people. And there's going to be individual responses, different responses from person to person. So I wish I had an answer. I don't. I probably couldn't even really give you a good ballpark estimate.
So, okay, do you think it's of value if it comes down to trial and error? Do you think it's of value for, to really have an understanding of all of these things with bar speed? And I guess where I try to think through is, I think there's I guess, is it a value, like the difference between you getting an athlete, let's say that they back squat, you get a kid that comes in and he starts back squatting with you and he's at 150K, 330 pounds. If you're dialed in on this measurement, and I guess that's the other thing is like, I'm struggling here because I'm like, okay, where does this effective reps model for hypertrophy, how does this leak into a model that also incorporates strength? Like that was going to be like my main question is like, okay, what's the model for strength then?
Yeah. No, these are all like valid considerations and concerns. I don't know.
Yeah. And I guess like that's also something where, so when I'm looking at like rep schemes, I see rep schemes in the sense of like, I'm saying this, I agree with the volume thing. If we could have a prescribed definition, this would be clearer.
Could you, because you told me like last week, what is that definition of volume that you use again?
So I go primary volume, secondary volume, and then I assign the number of lifts or the number of reps to, let's say, the first and the second lift in a session based off of the primary adaptation. This is getting way deep, but it would basically be the number of reps on a lift over 60% of their max. Now, that's for somebody who's been training for like 2+ years.
Yep.
For someone who is under that age, so let's say in the case of we get 11, 10-year-olds all the way, coming into the gym to 18, like getting them before they get to high school, those rep schemes from, so we have, and this is where I think it should get nuanced. I think that's the one thing here is I think it's good to get nuance if there's definitions on and models that sort of have you like, if this, then that of flowcharts. And for us, it's like, okay, we have a level that athletes are in, and we look at the sport. So we have these 5 columns of sports that we call sport depths. And then we assign, okay, in this sport depth 1, let's say a shot putter's sport depth 1. Okay, in sport depth 1, when they achieve these basic movements, so we have 6 lifts, that correlate highly to the sport. When they achieve this, they go from level 1 to level 2. And when they get to level 2, that's like essentially high school level. When they get to level 3, it's collegiate level. When they get to level 4, it's professional. But when they go, that's like a ticker that then puts them into the next level. And that's when the association and the comprehension of volume changes.
Yeah.
So you go from just reps of like, I could use the example that we have this one girl right now who's an absolute, like one of the greatest athletes I've ever worked with. She's 12. Dude, I'll say this right now. I think she's going to win the Olympics and break the world record in the shot put. Like, she's 12 years old. So this girl, okay, for her to get to level 1, or for her, she's in level 1 when she starts, right? Well, we're just getting reps. Yep. Snatch the bar. And then all of a sudden she's snatching, 60 kilos, right? So by the time that's happening as a 12-year-old, she's already in level 2, even though she's 12. So she's at the next level, and that's the ticker for now. We're in this volume model, we'll say, of now we're only counting things when she's over 60% on her lifts. Let's say a snatch, a clean, a back squat, a bench press, a behind the neck jerk. It's different if we're looking at things like, we also do use like a vertical jump or a broad jump, but that's a little bit different, because that was another thing I was going to bring up to you.
Yeah.
So then once you have that ticker, when you get to that next level, now you're in the 60% and you're looking at primary lift, just primary lift 1. Then when you get to level 3 and 4, now we're looking at lift 1 and lift 2. And then we have secondary volume, which is the hypertrophy phase. So it's like, I sort of think about it like this ball rolling, and once it hits here, now this opens the door for 2 more things. And then it goes to the next. And then once you get to level 3, now you have to incorporate and understand how all of the stuff gets pieced together, but it really doesn't matter until someone is at level 3 or level 4.
Right. Yeah. Dude, nobody has the same level of detail that you have put into that. Nobody.
So that's where I'm like, and like, I call it it's a phasic model, basically, where it's phasic / level oriented, because it's also, then I look at in the periodization model, the periodization doesn't necessarily matter until you get to level 2 to a point, and then more so level 3, and then level 4 is where it really matters, because that's where, if we're measuring all of the nuances, it could be the difference in a sport like shot of 10 centimeters. That could be the difference.
Yeah.
Dude, 10 centimeters could be the difference of Olympic bronze and getting like 7th.
Yeah.
So I think that's where and
you graduate from level to level based on what your PR is per lift.
Yeah, based off of the assessments. And so what we've done is like, okay, we have the gym and we have the athletes and we have the breadth of knowledge. And then, dude, like all of this was rooted, the 60% was all rooted in like my favorite strength book from when I was, got into like training and thinking about training. And that's what the original guy that I read about was like, once you get over, this is the reps that matter. And then what we've done, so we say, okay, that's like the root of the number, but then the assessments and the research is based off of, who's an athlete in the past, who's the avatar in the past that's been a female shot putter that's been a Power 5 shot putter. And then we can look at it and be, okay, well, we've got these 25 chicks, and this is their average for bench press, snatch, clean, front squat, back squat, single leg squat, incline bench, broad jump, vertical jump. And then that way that helps us understand, like, okay, we have real athletes that then provide that. And then that's where the rep stuff, that's where I was bringing that up to you on the phone, was like, if I'm saying to somebody like, okay, I know that to be a Power 5 running back, you should probably clean 300 plus pounds, based off of what we've seen in our gym. And then also single leg squat this, and this single leg squat also leads to this in the 40, leads to this in the shuttle, and leads to this in the vertical. So that's where it's like we can draw a really easy map of just reps for that athlete. But then it still doesn't do, it's still, I don't know, maybe it's a graduated phasic volume
Yeah.
Phasic volume model. I don't know.
Yeah. No, all that shit makes really good sense to me. And that type of model is going to, yeah, that's way that's way better than anything I've ever heard from anybody else discussing volume and what it takes in order to achieve certain benchmarks. Yeah.
So I think that's why I originally got triggered by your volume video because I see. I mean, I guess the hard part is like when you were younger, like did you? I guess I wanted to ask you, like, when you started to train, what did you even think about when you started lifting weights? What were you doing?
I was like, I don't. It's hard to say when I started because I probably started in like 7th grade doing like the incline machine, doing the like the quad machine, the knee extension machine. That's probably when I started. But like when I actually started training was when I was 18. I was a freshman in college because I had to. I was in a strength and conditioning program, and that was kind of just your standard college strength and conditioning program: clean, squat, bench, a lot of barbell work. So I don't know. I don't know when I started at 18. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was just saying because it's like there was probably a point where you were just getting reps and
and it was good for me doing that mindlessly, laying down on the incline machine, just getting reps at probably doing sets of 15 because it felt like a good chest burn. That was probably really good for me at the time when I was 13 years old.
Yeah, because I was trying to think through that because it's like, okay, then that's where I think it is important is that like you get so stuck on like the effective reps model, which, dude, the fact that there's a model is great because it's like it's providing this blueprint, but then at the same time we're alienating 95% of athletes.
True, 100%.
Yeah. And I think that's the downfall of the strength and conditioning world is like we get into this discussion and it's like, well, what about the kid who is 13 years old and they just for 6 months they learn how to deal with stress. They just learn how to be like, a couple kids like the first time that they bench, it's like, wow, this hurts. But then they realize it's not a hurt. It's like, this is just a pain. Like this is like a nagging feeling, maybe not nagging, but this is like a stinging feeling that you are going to learn how to, one, accept, and then two, eventually you will like to seek that feeling out because that's going to get you more reps,
right?
Which in theory could get you more mechanical tension, even though is that feeling of discomfort for them based off of metabolic stress or not? I don't know.
Yeah,
and it probably doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what do you do specifically. So let's take the effective reps model and let's pretend that this doesn't matter regarding strength or explosiveness. How are you monitoring like rep schemes or load or total volume? Whatever. Let's just say volume for the time being for explosive movements and strength.
Not even without any regard for hypertrophy, like with people I work with.
Yeah, or you in general.
Shit. I mean, I kind of use the effective reps model for myself, even when I'm just when I just want to get stronger. Because I stay in that kind of lower rep range, and I just want to hit. I kind of take the stimulate, don't annihilate kind of approach with myself. But like all the clients I work with, they're all at the oldest like 17 or 18 years old. So like they're still in that level 1 phase where it's just we're getting reps for the most part, anyways. So I never even like. It kind of sucks to say, but practically speaking, I never work with anybody anymore where that's even a concern of mine, which kind of sucks in a way because I'm interested in strength conditioning. Obviously, you're interested in strength conditioning, but like you just said, the reality is that 95% of the people, none of this stuff even pertains to them. They just need to like get the reps down. So, I mean, practically speaking, I just apply this stuff to myself, honestly, now, not even like with clients.
How many effective reps would you get on a session of back squat?
Jeez, man. It really depends on how heavy I'm trying to go. 10 to 15, kind of on average, I think.
And you're basing this off of if you're within 5 reps of failure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I use that Beardsley guideline.
Yeah. Okay. So now what would that bar speed look like if you're within 5 reps of failure for you on a back squat?
That's a good question. I need to get more data on this because I just got the OVR VBT device like 4 weeks ago, but probably under zero point 0.5 meters per second if I had to take a guess.
This is another question I had that I've been thinking through is like, is someone, so you're definitely more hypertrophic in the sense of like when you see your physical build, like you're more muscular, right? Like you have more muscle mass. Now, the one question that I have related to this that I think is an interesting one because it's popped into my head when you started talking about the bar speed stuff in the video. I immediately was thinking, okay, let's take somebody from the eye test, someone like Will, who's explosive, clearly explosive, athletic, blah, blah, blah. Let's take you, okay, and see what is that within 5 rep of failure. What's that bar speed? Is that going to be different? Let's say a back squat versus someone who's like a weightlifter trained who has like the skinny fat appearance, but then they're stupid strong and they're within 5 reps of failure or 4 reps of failure. And their bar speed is, in my opinion, I would believe would likely be a little bit higher than yours, even though they might be within the same range of failing.
I was going to say, I was going to say the opposite though. Their bar speed, well, who's stronger, me or the hypothetical person? Because like the stronger you are, the more you can grind out the really slow reps. The longer you can stick with that really slow rep. So you're closer to failure. You know,
I don't know if I agree with that because I think let's say, okay, what I'm thinking about is like some of my weightlifters, they'll move a weight. Let's say like, I'll just think about Ryan because he's top ahead. He just hit 215 for a double,
on
back squat.
Okay.
So he'll hit 215 for a double, and it's moving like 0.5, like quick, and then literally third rep done. He's toast. But he is not a mass based avatar, whatever you would call it.
Yep.
Yeah. Whereas like I see you as a mass based guy, and obviously you would be a good weightlifter, but like I think football to me would be your best. I don't know how tall you are, but I see it that way in the sense that you have more mass, and I would see you grinding more than Ryan's capable of, and that I feel like guys that have more mass can get out of position and still manipulate the bar to get to executing the weight.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know because
does it even matter?
Right. Yeah. True.
Yeah.
The way I would see it is whoever's like a more skilled lifter, I guess, is probably going to be able to grind out this, get closer to failure, and grind out slower reps. Like you see this, you train a lot of females, right? Like with females, at least when I worked with like volleyball players, they would move a weight at like 0.55, 0.6, and then the next rep they would fail because they just don't have like the neural drive or the skill of the lift to actually grind out and stick with it. So yeah, I don't know, man.
I also don't train chicks like that. I train chicks that are like well trained or they're just so like this is where I cheat is like I can like pick and choose from our audience that comes in and be like, okay, these people are training with me and they might be 12 or 13, and then I know that the goal is that I get them to train with the professional group in 2 to 3 years, so it's like I know they're already more gifted. So like, or they're weightlifting based too, so it's like I don't know. I did want to ask you
I wanted to ask you something too, Dane, but
okay,
but go ahead.
Jumps, how many in a session for let's say high intensity, like it's like a broad jump, let's just do like double leg broad jump, session.
You're counting every single jump as its own rep, right? So like if you did like a 5 consecutive broad jump, is that 5 jumps or is that 1?
Yeah, 5.
Okay, so 5. Do you know the way I like program plyos? Have you seen any of that stuff?
Maybe a little.
I mean, the way I do it is I just put them on a timer. So I'll say like, hey, we're going to do this for 12 minutes or 14 minutes.
Okay.
With the understanding that the first 5 minutes are kind of going to be warm up. You're not going to reach the highest outputs you can achieve. And then as you get closer and closer to like your maximal outputs, you're going to start taking more and more rest, meaning the reps are going to decrease, right? So
Yep.
if I had to guess, 15-ish, 15 to 20 in a
I
session.
think that's reasonable.
What would you say?
The way I set up, yeah, I did want to bring this up is I think that the dumbest shit that we do in strength and conditioning is we have like intensive and extensive jumps.
Yeah.
And I think this is all related, actually, ironically, to Werner Gunther's video when he came out with that, and I think some of it also probably to Verkhoshansky's to super training to a point, but I think a lot of it was instead of us just looking at it and being like, these are hops, these are jumps. A hop could be a pogo, could be a jump and rope, and then a jump, ironically, so a hop would be hopping rope. A jump would be like a hurdle hop or a broad jump to a box or something that's way more intense, whereas the hops is like moves that you can get 5 to 10 in one set. So for me personally, we set it up where we'll do a warm up, then we might lift a little bit in the beginning, like a power snatch or something like real light, sometimes depending on the sport, and then we'll do a hop session. So let's say, like pogo hops, 5 sets of 9, something like that. And then we'll do a unilateral and a bilateral point here. That's like the transition period. And then we'll do jumps at the end. So at the end, it would be like, it could be like 6 sets of 4 hurdle hops. And so we would push around 20 to 30 jumps.
Yeah. That's probably, maybe the 15 to 20 that I said is kind of on the low end, but yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think we're probably in agreement there. And like,
I think's funny is
what an appropriate workload would be.
Yeah, I was just thinking. What's funny is I differentiate as jumps and hops, and hops is about 75% of the volume. But then I also stated that jumping rope is hopping and hurdle hops is jumping.
Yeah.
What questions you have?
All right. Do you edit this?
Do I edit it?
Yeah.
I don't personally edit it,
but it'll get edited. I just want to make sure I don't want to say anything disrespectful about somebody.
Anything that you want out, you just got to tell me.
Okay. All right. So you follow Brandon Accardi, right? I'm because I saw you comment on his post about strength is specific to the speed and mass you build it at.
Yeah.
So because I'm good friends with Brandon. I like Brandon a lot, and me and him used to be on the same page for so many things, and now he's like moved over into this. He really cares about like time to peak velocity, eccentric rate of force development. These are all like metrics that I think they're relevant, but they're like not that important for the most part. I think these are metrics that improve just with good training. They're not things that you have to intentionally improve, if that makes sense. Yeah. Anyways, he has that post, and he kind of goes over like he said, if you move 200 kilos, that doesn't mean you're going to move 140 kilos faster. I just saw you comment, and it's like, I don't know. I saw that little exchange you had, and I'm in agreement with you. I'm in alignment with you. I just want to get because he eventually didn't reply to your last comment, but what's your take on all of that stuff?
Okay, so I think that, and I sort of want to show you. I'll show the audience where a lot of my when I see, and so if we're gonna edit this out, I'll try and piece this in.
I just don't want to say. I don't want to say someone's name and come off disrespectful because I'm friends with Brandon too.
And I'll say this, like I don't necessarily think like. Okay, so I think there's a couple actions here. One, I think there's so much nuance, right? There's nuance in strength and conditioning. Okay, so then there's research and measurables and research, and I've talked to Christoph Kipp, who's like the main researcher. I talk to him every single day, literally every day. So if I talk to Christoph and I'm sending him research and stuff, and I'll send it to him and I'll say, these are the measurables in this study. So then we see these measurables in this study, and they're like, maximal voluntary contraction or something. They just sound so confusing, and it's like, come on, what does this even mean? So then you have these measurables in research, then you have applied over here. And then I think what ends up happening is that we get cool tools, and they might be tied a little bit to some research-based measurables. So then we start to really think that we should just be manipulating these outcomes over here. And because training is so nuanced, we start to think like that's got to be what we measure. And I'll be the one right now. Dude, I have an athlete I've coached from 2015 to still currently coaching. He's the number 11 discus thrower in the history of the entire world. He's a 3-time Olympian, and we never measured any of that shit. We just lifted and threw. And it's like, okay, so you want to make all these like time to peak velocity, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's great. All that stuff's good. But is it going to change really what I'm trying to develop in the weight room when it's like, I don't have if I go to our CFO at the business and I say, hey, I really want to spend $30,000 on this thing. It's going to measure X variable for 3 athletes that we have. Well, what kind of business decision is that? It's just the stupidest business decision. And it all comes back to like, why would I do that when it's really just going to go, okay, let's get this athlete to squat more, to jump better, to single leg squat, to do snatches, to do cleans. And guess what moves? All of those numbers, they all change. They all get better. And it's like, I think that's, so the nuance gets covered. And dude, also like I'm trying to make money. I want to provide a service that people find valuable. I always say this, if I could train Dane Miller from, myself back in the day, if I could find the Dane Miller who lives in, Idaho somewhere and he has no access to training, I want to be able to help that kid and help him get to the next level. So I want to be clear that I also have I want to provide value and have a financial gain from it for various reasons, but like it doesn't go through like confusing variables that need to be measured by an expensive piece of equipment. And now also I think things like 1080 motions and stuff are sick. I love them. I think they're really neat to play around with, but I don't think that they're necessary. Guess what? Go run on a hill. You could go run on a hill and you can go Power 5 and be the starting running back at Penn State right now. And you've never trained on a single 1080 motion until you got to college. I can tell you. So with that, what you were just bringing up, and I want to find this video because I think that it's important that if you can clean 200 pounds or 200 kilos, you can clean 200 kilos, right? And all right, your 200 kilo clean, probably it'll be a negligible impact if you would go from like a 170 to a 200K clean. The impact on that 100K clean, it'll be negligible on the speed of the weight or the speed of the bar. Does that make sense?
Yep. I'm with you there. Yeah.
But if you go from 170 to 200K on the clean, the speed differential on a 150 so mass matters.
Yep.
Mass does matter in this case because that's a comparison. It doesn't always not matter. Now, the interesting part is that if you're comparing this to, let's just say, in the case I'm using Sam Maddox, I actually was just watching him clean 200 kilos. Like, does that matter? Does that 200K clean matter for? Here's actually I found the video I wanted to show you. Does his 200K video or his 200K clean matter for throwing the 2K discus? I would argue not in the immediate, but if he expresses a large amount of high threshold motor units, coordination, stability, and executes this, let's just say it's in January, my goal is that he can do something similar and have that expression at an even higher speed in August or September when we're peaking at Worlds or the Olympics.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of, and that's like a jump. That's sort of the model I would be using. But I still think mass would matter. It's just the latency period is extended the more the differential is there. But it's still like it does matter. It's saying it as a blanket statement, and that's the one thing I think with social media is that we're always making these like super blanketed statements that in reality it's like there's so much more of a gray area than that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On the point of like what you were just saying is as like as far as putting things out on Instagram, it's like, well, Angus Bradley, if you know who Angus is, he's a good dude. He one time said like the medium is the message. I can give you like practical information, or I can give you context using Instagram. I'm not going to write like a 3-page dissertation on Instagram to explain like, here are the practical ways you can implement the information I'm giving you. So like you got to kind of pick one or the other. And it's like, you're going to put out the practical information. If someone can't take the information you're putting out and know which context it applies, it's kind of their problem.
I agree with that. I wanted to, I 100% in going back to this actually. So this is an athlete I have. He snatches like 150. I don't know if you can see this. Shit, it was out of focus. I don't know if it'll get in focus, but I wanted to share this in the sense that like, look at how fast he's moving. That's 100 kilos. Okay, I know it's not in focus. We'll put it on the video. Okay. The point I'm making on that is he snatches 155. He probably is power snatching that like 2.5 meters per second, somewhere around that speed, which is ungodly fast. It's not as fast as a muscle snatch, but it's freaking fast. And it's like, would he be doing that if he would snatch 130? I don't think so.
Right. The other thing in terms of like the speed of the movement, all these metrics focus on speed of the load, but they're not necessarily focusing on like the speed of the hip of like the femur and the socket actually going from flexion to extension to flexion, and same with the shoulder going from internal rotation to abduction, external rotate, like the speed at the movement, not just the load. I think that really gets missed because your body's moving fast too, not just the load. And
well, I also think that's what like when you look at a muscle snatch a muscle snatch will be likely the fastest lift that you're going to measure. And that could get to like 3+, but I guess that would favor your argument because it's really your shoulder and the turnover of the shoulder. Yeah. Maybe not. I'm just trying to think through based off of what you're just stating there. But it also comes back to like, dude, we wouldn't have to measure any of this, and it's not going to really be changing the fact that if I have assessment numbers here and we know how many reps it takes to get to all of that, it's basic numbers. It doesn't need to go into like all these crazy derivatives and time to peak velocity and stuff. It's like, dude, squat more, jump more, do weightlifting movements, and I guarantee you that our guys are going to have and women are going to have the fastest time to peak velocity.
Right.
Right. Without being measured.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Will.